Good afternoon, everyone. This is Brian Berry with ScanForce. Everyone should be able to see the intro screen there, ScanForce Food and Beverage. We've already reached the top of the hour, so I will go ahead and dive in. I do want to tell everybody that we are recording this, and you will get a link afterwards to the recording. So take notes if you wish, but just know that a recording will be heading your way. And since I'm talking about recordings, I can tell you that we record all of these sessions, and we have a great number of them available to you in a library format. If you visit our website, if you go to scanforce.com, there's a resource tab at the top, and underneath there's a link to videos, and you'll find a host of videos. Some are recordings of full webinars, just like this one, and some are very small clips, just 2 or 3 minutes on a certain specific topic, okay? So let's go ahead and dive in. Again, this is Brian Berry. Feel free to ask questions in the chat as we go, and we'll either handle those, as they come in, or we'll get them at the end. So let's talk about what we're going to talk about today. I'll do a real quick overview. For those of you that have been with us before, I promise I won't bore you with too much of that, but I do want everyone to just understand kind of where we are and how we exist in the Sage ecosystem. And then we're going to dive right into the meat of it and talk about barcoding, because any sort of inventory control warehouse management system begins with the barcode. Some of you may have a great deal of experience with barcodes. Some of you may not know any more than it's a bunch of little squiggly lines and you're not sure really what they do. So we'll get everybody on a level playing field. And then we'll move into the actual things that happen in the warehouse. And we're going to talk a lot about lotted inventory, because if you're in the food and beverage industry, you're probably dealing with lot numbers a lot. So we'll cover that. And then we're going to talk a great deal about multi-bin. Now, multi-bin is a big buzzword in the Sage 100 world. Some of you may know quite a lot, or at least think you do, and some of you may not even know what multi-bin is. Well, again, we're going to bring everybody on the level playing field, because there's a lot more to multi-bin than just visibility and where things live. There's a lot of functionality and a bunch of algorithms behind the scenes. We're going to pull the curtain back and show you what all that does. And at the very end, we're going to have a little bit of talk about mobile sales, because I know some of you have reps that go out and take orders from customers. We'll talk about how we can automate that part of the process too at the end. And then we'll save a little bit of time at the back end for some questions. So real quick on who we are, one thing that I'll promise you, I am not going to read screens to you today. If I did, we'd be here all day on this one. There's a lot of detail. The big takeaway on this is we've been around for a while. Better part of 20 years we've been doing this. We can see right there in the middle, we have over 800 Sage 100 installations. We have over 8,000 Sage 100 users. So not our first rodeo. You by no means would be a guinea pig going on the system. We've been doing this for a long time. And then right there in the middle, highlighted in orange, it says connected and disconnected environments. So real quick, what that means is based on our architecture, the way that our system was designed, it can work if you have a real-time connection to Sage. It can also work in many instances when you don't have a connection to Sage. In fact, we have a lot of customers that have big laydown yards where they store big bulky equipment outside. They have no Wi-Fi coverage. That's fine. They can go outside, do a complete PO receipt transaction with no connection to Sage. Or if you're in the middle of a transaction and the power goes out and you lose the Wi-Fi, you might think, oh, I just lost all my data. Well, it's actually just the opposite. Not only will you not lose your data, but you can actually complete the transaction even without that connection. So that's just a little bit about the design of our system. Now, what is our system exactly? Well, WMS, that stands for Warehouse Management System. Basically, that's just inventory control. What we do at our core is extend Sage inventory functions out into the warehouse so your reps can enter things in real time and have them directly update back to Sage. And we do a lot of data validation along the way. We'll talk more on that later. Now, label printing. I mentioned barcoding. We're going to talk about barcoding in a very few slides here just coming up. But you can print labels with those barcodes out of receiving, out of a manufacturing process, when you go to ship something, or pretty much any other time. So that's all built in, the generation of the label and those barcodes that sort of drive the inventory control. Now, mobile sales, I told you we'd talk about at the end, so I'm just going to put a pin in that one, and we'll wait until we get to that slide. Now, manufacturing. Now, some of you do, some of you don't. We have some distributors on the line. We may have some that are manufacturers on the line. We're going to talk a little bit later on about manufacturing and the different parts of Sage manufacturing that we interface with. So I'm going to leave that until we get to that slide, but I promise we'll touch on it briefly. Okay. Now, some of the things that set us apart, that make us unique. Our application is very fast. It's a really snappy thing. We did this thing years ago. It was documented. You may have seen it. There were some videos. It was called a Million Record Challenge. And basically what we did is we had to load up 1 million records in Sage, which is a lot, by the way. And then we said, let's go get one of those pieces of data. And it came back in 0.03 seconds. That's screaming fast, even in computer terms, okay? So the point is, when your people are out on the loading dock, they're not gonna look at the handheld and see that little white spinning dial in the middle of the screen, waiting on the system. Our system, very responsive, very snappy. We don't want your people to wait. That's inefficient, and we're all about gaining efficiencies, okay? It's also very intuitive. So we've been around the Sage world for, again, like the better part of 2 decades, and we know how Sage wants the data to flow in. We know how receiving works. We know how picking works. So our system is designed with all of that flow in mind. So we're not teaching your people how to re-receive. They don't have to relearn how to do their jobs. It's just that instead of scribbling things down on paper now, we're going to let them put it in electronically into a barcode scanning device that has a touch screen and allow them to do it in real time, again, with all those data validations that I mentioned a moment ago. And also support. My hope is that if you ask anyone in the Sage 100 world, give me a 1-word definition for ScanForce, that's what I'd want them to say. And many of them will, and I challenge you to do that. Support is something that we do extremely well here. It's ingrained in everything we do. It's a top-down thing, from the sales process to the implementation process to the ongoing support. It's something that we really, really hang our hat on here. Now, let's get right into the barcoding. So you got 2 barcode examples up on your screen. The one on the left is a complete train wreck of a barcode, okay? If I told you, here's a barcode scanner, go scan the quantity, what is it, 600,000 if my eyes can see that many zeros, how would you disseminate that one piece of data and not get the one above it or below it or beside it? It's really tough to aim. But you might say, I could probably do that. Well, you might be able to, but could you do it from the seat of a forklift 8 feet away? Probably not. But then again, you could look at the one on the right-hand side of the screen. That's one barcode. You could scan that one barcode, and it contains all that data in one place, okay? And those of you that have been online with me before have heard me say this. We can develop a barcode and incorporate we can encode the entire Gettysburg Address the size of a postage stamp. That's how dense these symbologies are. Symbology is just a language of barcode, and there's a bunch of different languages. Our scanners can read all of them. Yours, your vendors. If you have alias barcodes, okay, if you know what aliases are in Sage, where you can set up a cross-reference between your item code and whatever your vendor's part number, item code, description, whatever that is. So we can do all of that and scan those alias barcodes as well. But here, I can encode all that data in here. And let's say we're on one screen of our handheld application and I'm picking something and I need to do it by the item code and the lot number. I can scan one barcode and our system will actually, our barcode scanners will parse the barcode. That's the term that we use, the technical term. It's called parsing the barcode. It's basically just splitting it apart into its component elements. So I can take the item code and the lot number and populate them in the respective places they're supposed to go on the handheld. Well, now I've collected 2 pieces of data at one time and it's 100% accurate. That's a pretty good thing. Okay, that's a big labor savings, and the accuracy, can't calculate what that's worth. Okay, so whenever you're scanning these barcodes, let me back up for a second. Let's just say you've just done a physical count, for instance. You've done a physical count, and you look at the screen, and you think, how in the world can we have this many variances? How is it possible? Or if you've ever found yourself saying, what do you mean we shipped the wrong lot number across the country? Okay, if any of these things have ever happened to you, I promise. These are the types of problems that ScanForce fixes. And we do it starting with the little black and white box on the right-hand side of the screen. And if you'll hang with me for about 20 more minutes, I will endeavor to show you exactly how. But let's start at the start. Let's start with receiving. So we're going to do a quick feature review. Receiving is the very first thing that you do. So when you're receiving product in, you probably have a lot number, given the nature of the business that you're in, that you need for traceability. Okay, which batch of this did it come out of? So you may have your own internal lot number. You may also have a vendor's lot number that could be different. Sometimes they're the same, but sometimes they're different. We allow you to capture both, along with the quantity in that lot and potentially even an expiration date. Now, not all of you need to capture all of this data. These are all settings behind the scenes. I just went in and turned them all on, and this is about the most complicated screen you'll ever see from ScanForce. Normally, our screens ask for one piece of data at a time. What's the order number? What's the item? What's the quantity? What's the location you're putting it in? That sort of thing. And the screens just flow. Here, I've got everything turned on so you can see all 4 of those screens, or all 4 of those data fields at one time. Now, one cool thing about that screen, that field up at the top there, the internal lot number, we can auto-generate that. We can have the system give you the next lot number in sequence. Now, show of hands, how many of you have a spiral bound notebook where somebody writes down all your lot numbers? I know somebody has their hand up right now because I've talked to some of you. How many of you have gone real fancy and have an Excel spreadsheet to track them? Okay, the point is, somebody has to go and do that. You have to think about it. Humans make mistakes. You forget to do things, okay? Computers don't. If we can automate one little simple thing like this and make sure that it's never, ever, ever a problem, that's probably worth the value of the cost of the entire system. And you get to throw away your spiral bound notebook and not use Excel spreadsheets anymore. That's pretty priceless, okay? Now, also, when you're receiving, you may be dealing with multi-units of measure. Now, I took a real quick little snip out of item maintenance on the left-hand side there. So you know how Sage gives you the 3 different units of measure, what you're stocking it in, how you're buying it, how you're selling it. Well, you may have cases, inches, pounds, any different variety of combinations there. But our system will allow you to utilize any or all of them. For instance, the 2 screenshots that you're seeing here, if you look down here at the bottom, you'll see they're both order number 10041. Okay, and I'm receiving this item 1910 in both cases. What I did, case there. So coming out of the purchase order, the unit of measure is case. So that's what's going to default in here. It's expected me to receive 10 cases. But if I'd rather do it in eaches, I can toggle it to each and it will do the math and say, well, there's 12 in each case. So I'll do the math, that's 120. Okay, so again, we're taking some of the processing and guesswork and stuff out of the human element and letting the computer do some of that heavy lifting for us so we can concentrate on more important things, okay? Now, another aspect of receiving, let's say you've got multiple POs that come in at one time. You may have the same item on multiples of those POs. Wouldn't it be really convenient to receive them as a total? That way, instead of going to the same location, putting things away 10 different times for 10 different POs, you could just go put it away one time. We can aggregate all the quantity of that like item that's across all 10 POs and receive it as a total quantity and put it away one time. That's a big efficiency savings, okay? We also have the same weighting or grouping of order philosophy for picking orders, for shipping orders. So again, we're just adding layers of efficiency. Now, let's jump in and talk a little bit about multi-bin. So what is multi-bin? Multi-bin is really an extension of Sage Inventory. And the dirty little secret is there's kind of a hole in Sage Inventory because there's only one location for every item code. And that's really why we built multi-bin, okay? We wrote this multi-bin solution. And you can see once we add that, I'm still looking at one item in one warehouse, but now I've got 2 picking locations. I've got an overstock location. I've got a couple of pallets here. I've got 10 sitting on a receiving dock that just came in. I've got 111 sitting in a staging area waiting to go out. I can see exactly where everything is instead of just, hey, there's 1,000 out there under the roof somewhere, okay? So multi-bin does this. It gives you this visibility, okay? And I can move things from location to location, and I know instantly exactly where each individual unit is, okay? So this is fantastic from a visibility standpoint, but this is the tip of the iceberg when it comes to multi-bin. This is what most people think of, but again, tip of the iceberg. So let's look on and see what else it can do. And this is especially important if you're interested in keeping FIFO in your warehouse, okay? We have this feature built in a multi-bin called auto allocations. What auto allocations really does is creates a reservation for you at the time the sales order is entered. You enter a sales order, we can reserve that based on business rules. One of them is FIFO. So if you want to ship the oldest stuff, then when we go to pick it, it'll tell us where the oldest stuff is. But wait, maybe the oldest stuff we received isn't the stuff that's going to expire first. Maybe that's more important to you. So there's another business rule that says, let's go by expiration date. So maybe we want to pull the stuff that's going to expire first, even if it's not the oldest stuff that we put into stock. So again, we help you develop these business rules and put them into the system. And now it's going to tell the user what to do. And it does that through what we call directed picking. Directed picking will show up on the handheld when you go to pick a sales order. It will tell the user, go down this aisle, go to this rack, this shelf, this bin, pull this item and this lot number. And they're going to scan it, and we're going to give them instant feedback. Remember that 2D barcode? We get instant feedback. It'll say, nope, you got the right item, but the wrong lot number. So it'll force them to correct that mistake. And all this is driven by the auto allocations that we just talked about in multi-bin. So if you think about an accuracy standpoint, why did we ship the wrong lot across the country? This negates that completely, because when you scan it, you know. okay? And if you don't want your people walking around aimlessly for minutes on end or hours on end looking for something, multi-bin, directed picking, auto allocations, it can show you exactly where everything is down to the shelf level, even the pallet that's on the shelf. We'll talk more about pallets in a moment, okay? So now let's talk about manufacturing really quick. Oops, sorry, the slide jumped on me. Okay, manufacturing. So if you're using anything even as old as work order, we can still work with that too, okay? But primarily today, most people are doing bill of materials or production management. So with bill of materials, you define the bill, you know what the recipe is, you know the raw materials that are going to go in. We allow you to assign those raw materials, including their lot numbers, to a particular bill, okay? And let it flow into a batch in Sage instantly, not tomorrow or whenever so-and-so gets around to keying it in. It happens instantly as soon as they do it on the floor. Think about the savings you would have in just the time gap if we could remove that and take it down to nothing, okay? So you could do all those same things with production management. You could also, well, actually for both of them, you can print labels for your finished goods if you wish. And by the way, the labels you print could be your logo, could be your customer's logo. If you're selling it to someone for resale, your labels can actually have your customer stuff. We can customize that. We can also, with production management, we can add labor tracking, okay? So you can add labor to the mix. So those of you that are already using production management, you're probably already doing this, but we allow you to capture it on the handheld, on the fly, on the run while you're actually doing it, not writing it down and hoping that piece of paper makes it to the office in a timely manner and that everybody can interpret the chicken scratch and get it keyed in correctly, okay? We also have this piece called make to order. And make to order is really cool because it will watch you when you enter your sales orders. And if it sees something that needs to be made, it can automatically create the work ticket through production management for you. Think of the time and labor savings there. We just removed one step of the process for you every single time, and it's an automatic thing, okay? And we give you instant visibility of all this production management stuff that's happening on the warehouse, all the labor transaction through our management console. And that looks like this. So I've taken a screenshot of the top half of that page here. And what you're looking at is a list of all the work tickets. See right here, here's all my work tickets, okay? And I can see who's working on it, what they're doing. I can see the start and stop time, but these don't have a stop time and they don't have a duration, all the ones that are highlighted. What that means to you is at a glance, when you look at this screen, you instantly know what's happening on the floor right now, okay? It's instant feedback. Turn your monitor on, bam, you know everything that's happening in your warehouse with one quick glance, and you can zero in on any of those. And you can see where it is the process and who's doing it, how long they've been doing it. And then once they're finished, you can see like this one came in over here at 1 hour and 30 minutes, where everything else is 12, 5, 2. Maybe this person simply just forgot to clock out when they went to lunch. It happens, we're human. So I can go in here, click on it, I can adjust it here, and now then I can submit it, and that's when it updates the labor back in Sage, okay? So we're bringing all the labor here so you can massage the data and you can submit them one at a time or in mass, and it all happens very quickly, okay? We're gonna touch more on the management console in a few minutes, but right now, let's move on. We're done with manufacturing, so everybody that's just a distributor, you can wake back up, and now we're talking about your language now. So let's talk about pallet tracking. If you have pallets that come in from vendors with raw materials, ingredients, whatever, or the stuff you use to ship them, if you move things around by the pallet, if you ship pallet level quantities out, then we need to talk about pallet tracking. Because let's say you put 20 cases of an item on a pallet. There may be 5 different lot numbers in there. Well, once we shrink wrap it and slap a pallet ID label on there, Sage knows all those lot numbers that are on this pallet. So if I ship it, all I have to do is scan that barcode. And Sage already knows all the lot numbers. I don't have to identify them anymore because I did it when I built the pallet. So you can really expedite your shipping process, okay? It makes things a lot faster and a heck of a lot more accurate. And take it one step further. What if you have a mix of different types of products, different item codes, and different lot numbers? Same process. Shrink wrap it, put a label on the outside, Sage already knows everything that's inside there, okay? So that's certainly a conversation we'd love to have with you. Now, a couple other things that we do that I wanted to just touch on very briefly. Let's say you've got a freezer section, a refrigerated section, and you've got like a dry goods type section or a room temperature section. Well, you may have 3 different people that need to pick the items for one order across those 3 areas of your warehouse. Well, we have this thing called split picking that will actually split the pick ticket, and you'll get -A, -B, -C, and you can hand it to the person in the freezer, and the person in the refrigerated section, and the person in the dry goods section, and they each have their marching orders now, and they get their part of the job done, and then it all comes together on the back end. Okay? Instead of you having to worry about how we're going to divvy up that pick ticket that came out of Sage, we just kind of do it automatically. Now, container receiving, you may think of that as on the water. That's kind of a common term in the Sage vernacular. So what that means is you own it because it's FOB shipping point, right? When it leaves China, you own it. So we can go ahead and pre-receive it into a virtual warehouse in Sage, and that way you have fantastic visibility. Everybody from sales to production, everybody can see in inventory inquiry exactly what's coming in, okay? And then when it actually arrives and hits our dock, it makes the receiving process so much easier because you're just basically checking everything in. We already know what's coming. So it speeds up the back end process and gives you fantastic visibility on the front end and all the way through. Now, Starship, that's probably a known quantity to some of you. They're another third party in the Sage 100 world, and they handle shipping labels. And we've always interfaced with them. We send information to Sage, they suck it up into their system and print labels. But now we've kind of cut out the middleman. We've developed an integration directly into Starship. So from our handheld, while you're in the picking shipping phase, you can hit a button, boom, instantly Starship labels print out. For those of you that are already using Starship, you're thinking, you mean I don't have to go to a PC and log in and find the order and navigate through the screen and hit the button? No, all that goes away. You do it from the handheld while you're doing the picking shipping process. That can save you hours a day, okay? Well worth it, all right? Now, I told you we'd talk a little bit more about our management console. Here it is. This is, before we were looking at the labor tab, now the transaction tab. This shows me everything I've ever done in terms of a barcode scanning. If I've done something on the handheld, there's a record of it here. Think about this. You see this field column over here for lots and serials? If I come over here and I type in a unique lot number, this will give me a truncated list of every time anyone ever touched that lot, from the time it was received or the time it was coming out of a manufacturing process, if they picked it up and moved locations, if they did a physical inventory of it, if it was partially picked or partially consumed in a manufacturing process. I have full traceability now. Would that help you for audit tracking? I'm guessing it would. Okay, so this lot view, via vendor lot, internal lot, whatever it is, if you have, heaven forbid, a recall, the traceability here, it's a fantastic management tool. It can do a whole lot more than this, but that's just a quick little snippet. Now, we're running short on time, so let me give you a real quick taste of what mobile sales is all about, okay? So for mobile sales, a lot of you probably have reps that go out and shake hands with customers and say, hey, what do you need this week, okay? Wouldn't it be cool if they had an iPad and they could just go tap, 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 and all the pricing and the shipping information and all that jazz just flowed in from Sage? That's exactly what mobile sales does. It's just like entering order at a PC, but we're doing it from an iPad while you're in the field with the customer. Or maybe you have a counter sales where people just come up and say, I need one of these and two of these. Well, now the person running the counter isn't tied to the counter anymore. They don't need to be at the PC to enter that. They can walk around with a customer with an iPad in their hand and enter everything. And oh, by the way, if I'm talking to a customer either in my office or theirs, I can turn the thing around and say, is this exactly what you want, Mr. Customer? And if they say yes, I can say, well, let me get your signature right here. And that goes into a file in Sage. I can even put that on an invoice later if I want to, proving that somebody signed for it. And I can hit another button and I can email them a copy of it. So literally, if I have a cellular version of a tablet, I can be in someone's office, take their order, get a signature capture, send them an email, and send it out to the back to Sage. It goes right into Sage. A pick ticket can be printing out, and it can be being picked before I even stand up to shake the person's hand. Okay, that's real power. It's extending the value that you have, all the money and effort you put into all the stuff in Sage, and extending it out of the field at the fingertip of your salespeople, so they can give very accurate and timely information to your customers. I've always thought as a salesperson, that's one of the primary goals in our life, is to set expectation levels, okay? Sometimes the news you have to deliver isn't always great, but at least if you deliver it accurately in a timely fashion, everybody kind of understands. And that's exactly what mobile sales does. They can pull up inventory quantities in your warehouse, in the warehouse that's in Toledo, in the warehouse that's in Walla Walla, Washington, wherever. So they can pull that information up and see it's all at their fingertips. And it really eliminates a lot of errors, because today, the way they're probably doing it, I'm guessing they have a form and they're putting check marks and scribbles and things like that. And sometimes that doesn't translate when they email it back in or whatever. This is digital. It goes automatically and flows in. It does not require a constant contact, so you don't have to have a cellular version of the tablet. You can use a regular iPad that's a Wi-Fi version, and then whenever you have a Wi-Fi connection, you can sync up and send that data, and all your orders will flow in a batch back over to Sage. Okay? All right, so that is a really quick overview of our warehouse management systems and how it relates specifically in the food and beverage industry and our mobile sales. And at this point, I would love to open it up and see if we have any questions out there. Darcy, we have anything that's come in?
We do. So we've got about 4 or 5 questions here. Can your scanners read any barcode that I have created or that my vendors print?
Yes, absolutely. There's a decode algorithm programmed by the factory into the scanners, so they can read pretty much into the symbologies or languages of barcodes. I know that's a lot of buzzwords, but the bottom line is yes, we can. Whether it's your barcode or if your vendor ships you something, if you have that barcode set up as an alias in Sage, we can scan that. It'll do the cross-reference, and it'll still allow you to check it in. So yes, all across the board.
Great. And someone asked, does multi-bin cost extra?
So multi-bin is embedded in one of the 3 versions of our software. I showed you that very first screen. We had Core, Select, and Premier. It's embedded in the Premier, okay? There's just a different feature set for each of those. The Core, if you're a smaller shop, just a 1 or 2 man operation kind of thing, maybe Core fits your needs really well. If you're a larger operation, you multi-bin, then the Premier version is available that has multi-bin built in. So it's either built in or it's not. It's not an extra cost.
Okay. Can ScanForce work in a multi-site company environment?
Yes, actually, we could do it like in a multi-warehouse. We can also do multi-company as well. So one step higher than that. So if you have multiple companies, multiple entities in Sage, we can do that. And we can also work in a multiple warehouse environment. That's where I was saying like in multi-bin, or excuse me, with the mobile sales, you can flip between warehouses and see what you may have. If you don't have it in your local warehouse, you may have it somewhere else, and you could have it brought in.
Okay, 2 more, but feel free to type any in if anyone else has more questions. Will you work with the new version of production management?
Oh, yes. So in 2023, there's a lot of updates that are coming out with regards to production management. You know, it was completely rewritten in Sage version 2022, and now they're adding a ton of extra functionality. So yes, we certainly will be. We'll be adding to our production management suite accordingly.
All right, this is the last one. So if anyone has any more, just feel free to type them in real quick. But can I build a pallet myself in the system, or does it only work when you receive pallets from a vendor?
No, so you certainly can receive pallets that are already pallets when they come off the truck. We also give you the ability to turn on a flag in our system that allows you to build a pallet at receiving. So as you're receiving materials, you could put them on a pallet, build it up, shrink wrap it, put a label on it, and put it away. You can also build a pallet at will, just at any point in time if you want to put things together. There's also a flag that allows you to turn on building a pallet at order entry, or excuse me, at picking. So when you're picking an order, you can pick to a pallet and then shrink wrap it and get it out the door in a pallet format. A lot of flexibility there.
Okay, that was the last one.
Okay, excellent. Well, I think that our 30-minute time window is just about up. So I thank you very much for attending. Again, you'll be contacted via email with a copy of the recording. And again, if you go to our website, scanforce.com, at the top, resources, underneath there's a video link, and you can see all of our whole video library. If you have any questions, please reach out to us. The phone number there, that info@email comes directly to me. Again, I'm Brian. And if it's a Sage 100 question, I'll be the person that you're talking to. So fire away. I look forward to speaking to you in the future. Thanks for your time.